In another video, I have defined 10 tasks that can provide hands-on experience with the electricity market. In this video, I shall show indicative solution to the 10 tasks. The video is prepared in a way that if the students get stuck on a task, they can see how to proceed with the solution. They can also use the video to correct their tasks. You can find the video with the task by following this link here. But before you start solving the task, you have to go to the homepage for the Power Market Simulator, and here you have to register as a user. You go here. If you want to solve exercise number 9 and 10, you can register here to use PMS hourly. There will be a fee if you want to pay a license for PMS hourly. The PMS education is for free, and here you just have to click and say you want to register. You register as a user by filling out your name here and your email address, a password, and repeat the password here, and your phone number. And if you are buying a license, it will say here buy account. And if you're only using PMS education, there will be a registrar here. When you have registered, you click here on login for members, and here you type your email address and the password, and you click here on login. And when you've done that, you go here and click on the PMS education version. Now I'm inside PMS education. As you can see here, we have the 3 fictitious areas, V1, V2, and HI. And here you have the year you want to calculate, the season, and the type of day, if it is a weekday or Saturday or Sunday. And now we are ready to start the first task. In the first task, we have to calculate the area prices and find the price setting units in the 3 areas. We use the default values, except that we must calculate on a winter day, weekday, and the hours between 11 and 12 a.m. So let us go back to the Power Market Simulator. We should calculate here on a winter day, and it should be a work day, and then the hours here should be between 11 and 12 a.m. And then we should make a calculation here on the 3 areas, and we should calculate the area prices. So that is what we're doing here right now. And here you can see the area prices in the 3 areas. We should also find the price setting unit in the 3 areas. We do that by right-clicking here, and then we can see the unit. These units, they are running full load. This unit here is running part load, and it is this unit that is the price setting unit in area VE1. We do the same here for VE2. These units, they are running full load. This is running part loaded, and this unit here is the unit that defines the price in VE2. And for HI, the situation is what you see here. Here we have the supply curve. Here we have the demand curve. And this unit here, the oil-fired unit, is the price setting unit in HI. So this was the solution of task number 1. In task 2, we should increase the availability of wind to 100% and repeat the calculation. And we should then find out how much the area prices will change, and which kind of units that would now be the price setting units. We're now back in the Power Market Simulator, and we are now producers here. And now we will increase the availability of wind power. We do that here by this buying and selling energy part here. And here you can also see the prices of the different types of fuel that we're using in the calculation. These prices could change. So if you don't get the same values as I showed you here, it could be because these values have changed the prices of fuel. Here I go, and now I say that I want to increase the availability of wind to 100% here. And then I do another calculation here, area price calculation. And what you can see here is that the price here in VE1 has decreased. And this unit here was the price setting unit before we had an increase in wind. Now it is this unit here that is the price setting unit. You can see here the wind power units, they are running full loaded here. This is also full loaded. This is part loaded, so it is this part loaded unit that sets the price in VE1. If we go here to VE2, you can see that we have increased the wind here. The supply curve has moved to the right, but it is still this unit here that is the price setting unit in VE2. And in HI, there is no wind, so the situation here is the same as in the first task. So this here was the second task. Now we go to the third task. In task 3, we should build a photovoltaic plant in VE1 of 1000 megawatt in year 2020. And we should set the availability of sun and wind to 100% and repeat the calculation. We should then find the price in VE1 and the price setting unit. Furthermore, we should calculate production, consumer, and transmission surpluses for the three areas individually and collectively. So let's go back to the Power Market Simulator. Now I'm back in the Power Market Simulator, and what we should do here was that we should build a solar plant in V1. So we go here, we are producers, we will establish a unit here, we call it solar. We choose the area here, it should be V1. We choose the energy, it's solar power. Technology, it's photovoltaic. We insert the year of commissioning, year 2020. The capacity 1000 megawatts, and it's not a CSP unit, so we say no here. We choose the color red so that we can recognize the unit, and we add it. And then we go here and say that we also have to have the availability of solar to 100%. So the availability of solar and wind is both 100%. And then we do a calculation of area prices. And what you can see here that is that the price in V1 has reduced. And the reason for this is that we now this solar unit of 1000 megawatt, it has shifted the supply curve to the right. So now it is this unit here that is the price setting unit. These units, they are running full loaded here, and this also full loaded. This one is part loaded and setting the market price. In the two other areas here, there's not been any changes because we don't have solar power in these two areas. We now should calculate the surpluses. So I go here and say show results. And what I can see here is that the consumption and production is the same. That is obvious. It should be the same. You can see the CO2 emissions in V1. You can see the total production costs, the producer surplus, the consumer surplus, transmission surplus, and the total surpluses. We save these values because we have to use them in another task. We do the same here for VE2, show results here. And here we have the results for VE2. We also save these results here because we should use it in another calculation. And then finally, we also show results here for HY. We have the results here. And when we have to show the results for all the three areas, then we click on all the three areas and say show results here. And then we will have the results for HI, V2 and V1 here. We also save this results. So now we have finished the third exercise. We now continue with exercise 4. And here we should insert a transmission line between the areas V1 and HI of 1000 megawatts in year 2020. Then we should calculate area prices and the production, consumer and transmission surpluses for the two areas, V1 and HI. We should then see how much the total profit increases for these two areas, and we should also find out who will benefit economically from having this interconnect between the two areas. And finally, we should calculate the bottleneck revenue. Now I'm back in Power Market Simulator, and the first thing we should do here was to build a transmission line. As you can see here, there's no transmission lines between the three areas. But now we're going to build a transmission line here between V1 and HI. So I go here and say, now I'm a transmission system operator, and I want to establish a line here between V1 and HY. And the capacity of this line should be 1000 megawatts. So I said 1000 megawatts here. And then the name here is VE1 HI. And the start year is 2020. And I add this interconnector. So now you can see this interconnector has been added here. And then I do another calculation here. I don't need to calculate on VE1 because we're only considering now VE1 and HI. So I calculate here, and what you can see here is that the prices have changed in the two areas. So if I go here, right click here on V1, I can see that now it is this unit here that is the price setting. This here is the demand in V1. This is the production in V1. So I produce more than I consume in V1, and the difference here is the 1000 megawatt that I export to HI. So this here is the price setting unit here, and if we click here on HI, I can see that this here is still the price setting unit, but this here is the demand and this here is the production. So now I have imported 1000 megawatt capacity from VE1. But what I should do here was also to calculate the surpluses. So I'll go here and say show results here. And now I can see here that the consumption is this amount here, production is this amount. I can see that I produce 1000 megawatt more than I consume. And then I save these figures here. That is the surpluses and the total surplus here, because it is these surpluses that I should compare with the surpluses without having an interconnector between V1 and HY. I do here the same for HI here, the same, and then I also do it for both together here, show results, and I save these. So now I will go back to my PowerPoint, and then we can compare the different values of these surpluses. The first thing we should do here was to calculate the increase in total surplus. And this here was the surplus before building the interconnector. This here was after building the interconnector. So we have to subtract this figure here from this, and then we can see that the increase in total surplus is about 30,000 euros per hour. The next thing we should do here was to find out who benefits from the interconnector. And if you look here at VE1, you can see here that the producer surplus will increase building this interconnector, and the consumer surplus will decrease when building this interconnector. And this is due to the fact that there is a higher price in VE1, so the producers, they will sell their production at a higher price. This will mean that they will increase their surplus, and when the consumer have to buy at a higher price, their surplus will reduce. If we look here at HI, you can see that there's the surpluses, they are unchanged, and the reason why these surpluses is unchanged is that it is still the same unit that is the price setting unit in HI, and the price setting unit will not generate any profit. So the profit for the producers will be the same, and the price in HI will also be the same, so the consumer surplus will also be unchanged. Finally, we should calculate the bottleneck revenue, and here you can see the transmission surplus here is calculated by the model, but we also have it to calculate it ourselves. And doing so, what we should do here is to calculate area price in HI. This is the area price in HI, and this is the area price in V1. The difference here between the two prices multiplied by the capacity of the interconnector will give this 34,000 euros per hour, and this is the same as the model is calculating. So now we have finished the fourth task, and we will continue with the fifth task, where we should find the capacity on the line V1HI where the bottleneck will disappear. So we go back to the power market simulator model. What I could do here was to put in here, change capacity of this line here, V1HI. It's 1000 megawatt, but I could change this here and do a calculation, change here and do a calculation and find at what capacity the bottleneck will disappear. But what I do here instead is that I say now I want to change the capacity to 10,000 megawatt. Then I'm sure that there will be no bottlenecks in the system here. I do the calculation here. You can see there's no bottlenecks. The prices, they are the same in the two areas. And then I click here on V1, show results. And then I can see here that there is a difference between the production and the consumption in V1 of about 2016 megawatt. So at this capacity, if I put a capacity of 2018 megawatt, then there will be no bottleneck. But if I include here a capacity of 2014 megawatt, then there will be a bottleneck. I will show you this here, show results. And then I put here, choose V1 HY connection. And then I said, now I will say 2014 megawatt in one direction and 2014 in the other direction. And then I do a calculation here. And you can see that there is a bottleneck between these two areas. If I now calculate V1 HY, this one here, and say it is 18 instead of 14 here, save, I do the calculation here, you can see there's no bottleneck. So at a capacity of 2016, the bottleneck will disappear. So this was the result of the fifth exercise. In task number 6, I should set the capacity of the line V1HI back to 1000 megawatt, and then I should save the settings. So let us go back to the Power Market Simulator. Here I set the capacity of the line here back to 1000 megawatt. Save, and then I should save the settings. I do that here where I say export the settings. When I do that, you can see here that the settings, they are exported, and this file here is on my own computer, and when I have to import it again, then I click on import, and then I will import this file again. So this was exercise number 6. We continue with exercise number 7. Here we should establish a power to X based on hydrogen plant of 1500 megawatt at V1 year 2020. And we should also assume that this unit here will buy electricity at a maximum price of 100 euro per megawatt hour. Then we should calculate area prices in V1 and HY. Then we should calculate how much electricity the Power to X plant will consume in that hour. And the hour in question is in year 2024, it's a weekday winter between 11 and 12 a.m. And then we should explain why it is not running at full load. When I'm building power units, I'm a producer here where I can establish power units. And when I'm building plants that consume electricity, I go here to energy consumption part here. I say establish a flex plant here. I say it is a power to hydrogen unit here, and I choose the area V1. Energy, it is chemical. Choose technology, it is electrolysis producing hydrogen here. The commissioning year is 2020. The capacity is 1500 megawatts. The color here, say it's blue color. The price, max price was 100 euros per megawatt hour. And then I add the plant here. So now the plant here is added at VE1. So what you can see here on the bubble diagram here is that this is the supply curve here. This here is the demand curve. This is the demand without having flexible demand. This here is the the capacity of this chemical unit that we have built. We said that the capacity was 1500 megawatt, but the availability is 90%. So here the capacity is 1350 megawatt. Here I should do another calculation here, calculate price. Now I can see here that the price in VE1 is 100 euros per megawatt hour, and the price in HY is the same as in the other calculations. If I click here on the show results for VE1, I can see here show results. I can see that the flexible consumption is about 500 megawatt. It's not running full load. This unit here, the power to hydrogen unit, and I can see here that the production here in is this amount here, and the non-flexible consumption is this amount. So the answer to one of the questions was that we should find out how much electricity the power to hydrogen unit would buy at this in this hour here, and it is this about 500 megawatt. So when I click here, right click on V1, you can see here that this here is a supply curve. This here is the demand without having flexible demand. And this here is the final demand in the system. The power to X unit here, it runs from 0 here to the about 500 megawatt here, and it is not running full loaded. And the reason why it is not running full loaded is that it is more, it's a better idea to export power to HI than running this unit at its full capacity. What you can also see here that it in V1, all these units here, they are running at their maximum capacity. This here is the production, and it is this unit here that is part loaded. It's the only unit in V1 that is part loaded, and it's the reason why it is this unit here that is setting the market price in V1. So the market price in V1 is this 100 euros per megawatt hour. If we look here at HI, it is still this unit here that is the price setting unit in HI. In task number 8, you should load the savings, and then you should make a scenario calculation for V1 in HI for the period 2025 to year 2040, where you calculate the total profit for the solar cell plant you have established in VE1. What will be the profit for the solar unit? And what will the model invest in this time period? When you've done that, you should refresh and reload. And then you should increase the price of solar cells to 0.5 million euros per megawatt and repeat the calculation. And then you should find out what is the difference between the two calculations. Now I'm back in PMS education. And the first thing we should do here was to make a refresh. I do that here. And then we should import settings. Now I've imported settings, and as you can see here, we have winter, we have a work day, we have the time from 11 to 12. If I right click here on V1, you can see that we have the solar plant here on the supply curve, and you can also see we have the connection between VE1 and HI. So now we are ready to make the scenario calculation. We go up here, auto build, and we should make a calculation for the period 2025 to year 2040. and we should follow the economy for the solar plant. So I'll go here and say VE1, choose the unit solar, and add the plant. So now we will calculate the profit for this solar plant during the whole period. And now I click here on the two areas we will do the calculation for and start the calculation. It takes some time, so I'll make a cut in the video here. Now the calculation has finished, and I go here and say show investment. And what you can see here is that this figure here is the profit for the solar plant we are following the economy for. And the profit here is 764 million euros. The other figures here are the production costs in million euros and the total production surplus and consumption surplus for the whole time period. If you look here, you can see the capacity that has been invested in V1 and in HY. And down here you can see a figure showing the same things here. You can see that in V1 there will be invested in 2.3 thousand megawatt of onshore wind and 4.5 thousand megawatt of photovoltaic. You can see that a significant amount of capacity is being invested in compared to the maximum consumption in the two areas. The reason for this is that the investment will continue until solar and wind becomes price setting in most of the time groups into which the year is divided. It is only when solar and wind determine the area price in most of the hours that the expansion stops. We are now going to make a new scenario calculation where we have increased the investment cost in solar power. So I'll go up here and click down this here, and then I will make a refresh here again. And I import settings. And then I go here and say now I will make a new calculation for the same time period, but I will increase the investment cost for solar cells. As you can see here, it is 405,000 euros per megawatt, and I increase this here amount here to 500,000 euros per megawatt. Save this here, and then again I will say I will follow the profit for the solar cells here, add to this here, and then I do a new scenario calculation. And now I make a cut, and now the calculation has stopped, and I go here, show investment. And as you can see here, the total profit for the solar cell has increased. It was before it was 664 million euros. Now it is 947 million euros. When you look here on the investment, you can see that it's nearly the same amount of capacity that has been invested in, but the income from the solar cell has increased. Now I'll go back to my PowerPoint and continue there. Here we compare the investment in the two cases. The first case here was with the standard price of solar cells, and this here was the case where we've increased the investment in solar cells to 500,000 euros per megawatt hour. The analysis shows that when the price of solar cell increases, not as much capacity of solar cell is established. However, the difference is not that great. But it turns out to be an advantage for the owners of existing solar cells when the price increases because their profit increase. The reason for that is that there are fewer hours when it is the solar cells that set the price in the case where we have an investment cost of 500,000 euros per megawatt hour. If the reason for the reduction in the expansion of solar cells is not rising prices, but problems with expanding the grid to receive the power from the solar cells, the result will be the same. Owners of existing solar cells should therefore be happy if there are grid restrictions that delay the expansion of solar cells. In task number 9, you should open PMS hour, and then you should choose winter, weekdays, and the hour between 11 and 12 a.m. And then go to the supply and demand curves, the bubble diagrams for DK1. And then you should find out where the gas-fired decentralized CSP plants they are on the supply curve. When you have found out of that, you should increase the efficiency of the CSP plants to 80% and see what happens. Then under availability, you should select DK1, and then you should investigate how the availability of solar and the CSP plants depends on the season and the time. After that, you should calculate area prices for the Nordic countries and Germany. It should be a winter weekday from 4 to 5 p.m. The efficiency levels of CSP plants should again be 50%, and the availability of CSP should be 87%. Then you should increase the availability of wind power to 100% and see what happens. And what you will see here is that prices, they will decrease. And then the owners of hydroelectric plants with reservoirs will not sell electricity at such low prices. They therefore increase the water value. Set the water value for hydropower plants with reservoirs to 30 euros per megawatt hour. How does that affect area prices? And why isn't it the hydroelectric plants with storage that become price settings? You should answer that question. In order to solve task number 9, you have to have a license to our version of the power market simulator. If you don't have this our version, you have to register here and buy the license for the PMS hour. When you've done that, you go here and log in. I am logged in now here, and then you go to and open the hour version of the power market simulator. And once you have become familiar with how to do analysis with PMS education, it is easy to switch to the scene to real life data. In this here, we have real life data. In PMS scenario and experimental, the user interface here and here is exactly the same as in the education version. The only difference is that now you can calculate on the whole world here with data for existing and planned production plants. The data, they come from Enerdata with production and consumption hourly profiles from NSOE and with transmission data also from NSOE. The first thing we should do here in task number 9 is that we must open the demand and supply curve for DK1. I do that with right click here on DK1, and then you will see the supply and demand curves. Here you can see the onshore wind turbines here, and you can see offshore wind turbines here, and you can see some biomass units here, and there is a coal-fired unit here, and then there is a lot of gas-fired unit here. And you can also see this here is the fixed demand. This here is heat pumps. This here is electrolysis units. And this here is boilers, electricity boilers. So we have the supply curve here and the demand curve here. But now we are going to see where the CSP plants they are on the supply curve. And you can see here we have biomass units. They are CSP plants. We also have a coal-fired unit here. It is also CSP, and we have these units here, the gas-fired units, they are also CSP. So what you can see here is that in Denmark, most of the units here is combined heat and power plants. Of course, these units here, the wind turbines, they are not CSP. The first thing we should do here was to increase the efficiency of the CSP units here. So I'll close down the bubble diagram here, and then I go here and say buy and sell, and then I increase the efficiency here to 80%, and then I open again the bubble diagram here. And what you can see here is now the cost here of the marginal cost of the biomass units and the coal-fired unit and the gas-fired unit has decreased because we have a higher efficiency on these units because they are producing both heat and power. So this was the first task. The next thing we have to do here is to look at availabilities. Close down this here. The Power Market Simulator has all available data for hourly profiles for solar and CSP in the bidding zones in the EU. When the user changes which season here and which day type and which hour we are calculating on, the availability here for solar and for CSP will change accordingly. But we have to look at this, how this changes they will be for DK1 here. Now I say we are during night time here, and look then on the availability for solar here. You can see the availability is equal to 0, and during daytime the availability is high. If I go here to a winter time here, change this here to winter, and click again on this hour here, you can see that the availability of solar has decreased. So when the user changes these parameters here, the season and Saturday and hour, these values will automatically change so that the user doesn't need to take into consideration the availability of these different parameters. When we look here at the CSP plant here, you can see that during winter time, the availability is very high because we are producing a lot of district heating, and then we're also producing a lot of electricity. If we go here to summer here, and again changes to the same here, you can see that the availability now is only 9%. This was the availability part of task number 9. What we should do now was that we should make a refresh. I'll do that here. We should calculate on a winter workday, and when we look here at the availabilities here, the time we should calculate was from 4 to 5 here PM, and then you can see here we have availability of the CSP plant is 78%, and the efficiency of CSP is 50%. We should keep these values here. And then we should do a calculation here on Germany and the Nordic countries. It's calculate area prices here. And here you have the area prices. You can see that we have the same prices in DK1, DK2 and Germany, and then we have the same prices here in this part of Norway, and then we have these prices here in Sweden and in NO3 and 4, and this price here in Finland. When we've done that, here we should change the availability of wind power to 100% here and make the calculation once more here. And what you can see now is that the prices they in Germany and in DK1 and DK2 has reduced considerably, and also the price here in Finland. If you look here on which unit here could be the price setting unit here, you can right click here on Germany, and then you can see the supply and demand curve for Germany. And you can see this here is the production, this here is the demand. So Germany is in fact importing power. And if you look here on the unit here, has a marginal cost, this unit here, of 3.76 euros. And this here is in fact also the price in these three areas. So it is a wind turbine that is the price setting unit in DK1, DK2 and in Germany. When you look at these very low prices here and you have a hydro plant with storage, you will keep the water in the storage instead of producing electricity. So what we do now here is that we increase the water value here to 30 euros per megawatt hour. And then we do a new calculation here. And then we will assume that now the prices, they will increase. We do this calculation here. But we can see that prices has not increased. And we would have assumed that it was the hydropower plants in Norway that would set the marginal cost. But if we right click here, for instance, on NO5 here, you can see here that this here is the demand, this here is the production in NO5. All these units here is what hydropower plants with a storage. All these units here is hydropower plants run a river. So what you can see here is that there is enough capacity on run of river power plants in the Nordic countries here to set the marginal price. So it is not the hydropower plants with storage that will set the marginal price. This was the last question in task number 9. In exercise number 10, you should make your own analysis using PMS education and PMS hour. This means that you should define your own questions and what you think would be the answer of these questions. And then you should use PMS education and PMS hour to see if your suggested answer is right. This was a video with the solutions to a number of tasks you can solve with the Power Market Simulator. I hope that this has given you a better insight into how the market works.